So hello, I'm Eva Toulouze. I'm a professor in Finno-Ugric Studies at Pariisi INALCO, and at the same time a researcher at the Department of Ethnology at Tartu University. I have prepared this presentation in Estonian, but I've been asked to deliver it in English in order to increase the potential audience. But never mind, there is not much written. I have been making field work in Udmurtia for 27 years, and I'm specializing in religious practice, but I'm not going to talk about religious practice, but to talk about a phenomenon in Udmurt culture that is very familiar to those who have made field work in this region, who have been there as guests, which is drinking the Udmurt way. And although I haven't particularly investigated this question while being there, I've been observing and been documenting, and so I may rely on my own fieldwork for this presentation. Yes, when you go to Udmurtia, you are all immediately impressed by the place. Drinking alcohol occupies in the rituals connected with guests. You are very much offered moonshine, and you are very much compelled also to drink it, as the first picture illustrates. I'll start by telling my first contact with Udmurtia and my first contact with drinking, which happened one day after I arrived to Ijevsk in '94, when we were invited with my colleagues to the countryside, to the village, a village called Pariisi in southern Udmurtia. And we were received by 2 or 3 dozens of old ladies who invited us to a very nice table with Udmurt food, sat us behind the table, and they stood and singed. This was already quite impressive. And during the singing, one lady came out, took out from her petticoat a shot and a bottle, and gave me the liquid to drink, saying, drink, I've done it, I made it myself. Of course, I drank it. And after that, all, one by one, the ladies imitated her. So when I understood that I was going to have to drink around 40 shots, I panicked. And I started eating as fat food as I could. And at the beginning, I thought I could manage because they organized a ritual, we watched the ritual, but after the ritual, it continued. So I finished by having a food poisoning for 3 days. And these ladies remember until today that they had a visit of a French woman who did not drink or eat anything. So why is kumyshka, this is the name of this particular moonshine, which is made in Udmurt. There are other names, but we'll stick to this one, kumyshka. Why is it important for the Udmurt culture? And certainly the first reason is because it has been historically a ritual drink, absolutely indispensable for all of, almost all of the rituals in Udmurt traditional religion. And it has been prohibited several times by the Tsarist regime because it was connected with the, as they say, the pagan religion of the Udmurts, but also because it, as an alcoholic drink, it was competition for vodka. This ritual drink was made in a ritual way also. It was made in this kind of apparatus you see here. It was made by women. I will develop this point. And during the making of kumyshka, very different kind of rituals were and are still performed. I won't insist on this, but I would insist on today rituals. Well, between the 19th century and nowadays, or between the period in which Udmurt religion dominated, there has been thorough evangelization in the Udmurt territory. So most of the big ceremonies that were performed according to the rules of agrarian traditional religion disappeared, mostly, of course, because of the Soviet period. There are still regions, and the one I make my field work in, Bashkortostan, for example, in which, thanks to the Muslim environment, evangelization has not penetrated. And here, very different kind of rituals are still alive. Here in this photo where the man holds the spirits, it's an autumn ceremony, and it's part of the ceremony that he gives drink to the assembled kin. In the second picture, where two women and a girl are sitting, it's made in Tatarstan, is in a non-Christian village in which very many rituals are still kept alive. This is a kin ritual in which a bowl with the spirits goes around. And in the same village, there are still initiations rituals, initiations for girls, in which kumyshka is entirely part of the ritual activities, both during the prayer and here after the prayer, when the initiated girls offer it first to their kin and later to everybody. Actually, in my practice, these are the only examples of the use of kumyshka in ceremonies, because the ceremonies are mostly alive in Bashkortostan, and the Muslim environment has influenced enough to ban spirits from these ceremonies. Traditionally, after the ceremony, there was partying, and alcohol flooded, but during it is not today used. And here I have only two marginal examples, but they are just after the ceremonies. In one case, a woman entered the sacred place after the end of the proceedings to offer it to the sacrificial priests and to the other people inside the sacred place, and she was chased immediately from the sacred place, so it wasn't accepted with pleasure. And in the other case, one lady asked the sacrificial priests after the end of the ceremony whether she was allowed to offer me kumyshka, and the priest showed her exactly where she was allowed to do it and not a step further. So these are the only examples I have of the ritual use of kumyshka. But another, in some way, also ritual use of kumyshka, although not directly religious, is kumyshka as a drink for guests, as a way of welcoming guests. And here I'm arriving at the non-Christian village in Udmurt, and I'm received by my friend with her own kumyshka. Here there was a huge group of people at a household in southern Udmurtia. More ceremoniously, the lady of the house distributes also kumyshka. In this photo, it's a very well-known performer of folk songs, Jakapai, in the same village, who offers to her guests who were at her place kumyshka. We are not around the table, but she gives it to us. And until now, in all the pictures I've shown you, there were women pouring kumyshka. Women made it, women were the only allowed to give it, and men could not drink without their permission. But now things have changed. Not only women make kumyshka, there are men who make it, more women, but there are men also who make it. And here we are in a household in southern Udmurtia, and it's the father of the house which pours us as guests the kumyshka. Here we are in a village in Bashkortostan. The elder man is a sacrificial priest, and you see he has in his hands a teapot. And what he pours from the teapot is not tea, but is kumyshka. We'll talk about that a little bit later. We would think that welcoming guests is the task of the hosts, but not only. Here we are at some of my friends' place, and we have the visit of a lady who is a good performer, who was a good performer of folk songs. And she came with her own kumyshka, and she offered her own kumyshka to the people she came to see. So it's not only a drink hosts give the guests, but a drink guests take along and they offer it around. It's the same example in a birthday. This is one of the guests who is pouring her kumyshka to the lady who is organizing the party for her birthday. Kumyshka is, of course, not the only drink which may be offered in Udmurtia. It's the most common, but it happens that people offer also vodka. But it depends on the host and it depends on the guest. It depends on the guest because guests, particularly honored guests, guests from far away, rare guests, may be offered vodka. My Udmurt language teachers explained that at his place, particularly respected guests were offered kabak vina, commercial wine, commercial vodka. And it's important that the people who offer it usually are part of what's called a village elite. They're not ordinary people. They are teachers. Here we have a school director, and at his place we were offered wine and not kumyshka. Probably because in this household it's not sure that the housewife makes kumyshka, so perhaps they have not kumyshka, but also because it goes with their status to offer vodka. But anyhow, in ordinary households you have kumyshka, and with kumyshka goes some rituals. Verbal rituals. Here, host, we are very well acquainted with her, so she's not going to make a long speech, but she's going to sing, just to welcome us and to sing. But it happens that, as in a Russian milieu, that people talk long, and we have an example here with a former director of the Udmurt newspaper, Udmurt, who at a wedding is welcoming me, a guest from far abroad, and he will present not less than 5 speeches, which was quite embarrassing with kumyshka. So welcoming people, celebrating, but also when people goes away. And here we had been 1 month at our landlady's place, and we are going away. So her son pours us kumyshka in order just to say goodbye. After any kind of celebration, we have here 2 examples in Bashkortostan. The first was in Easter time, after an event in a small village in which ladies from different other villages sang with their ensembles and then gathered together at one's place. And she pours kumyshka, as you see, from the teapot. So this is the host. But on the other photo, the lady holding a bottle is just a participant to an event, a very nice event of grannies and granddaughters. And after the partying took place in the library of the village library, and different ladies had their own kumyshka they offered the other people. Among the rituals going with offering of kumyshka, certainly one of them is that the one offering is supposed to be the first to drink. And there are two explanations of this obligation. Elder people say that it was to keep the luck of the family inside the family. If you give the first shot to someone else, he takes away the luck from you. Younger people explain it by saying that the host shows that it's a proper drink, that he or she drink of it themselves. If you want to show that the drink was good and that you have drunk it totally, you can turn the shot, usually up your head, and make a demonstrative show that it's empty. In Bashkortostan, you just put it on one finger. And here we have an example a contrario, because in principle you're supposed to pour kumyshka, not only kumyshka, towards yourself and not towards the exterior, as this man do. This gesture has a very strong semantics. It's connected with the world of the dead. So actually, it's a very bad thing he's doing here, but this is a man of Udmurt origins living quite Russified, and clearly he has forgotten, or he has not this reflex most Udmurts still have. Some words about the containers of kumyshka. Here you see this kind of container, which is often used. Inside there are wild cherry flowers, which both give a nice taste and are very aesthetic. And here the mother is pouring to her son in the kitchen. Of course, ordinary bottles can be reused. For kumyshka, this was a vodka bottle, but you can, and you'll see that at the end of the presentation, also use orange juice, Coca-Cola, and whatever kind of bottle. This is a very interesting container, and a very particular, I've seen this only in Udmurtia. It's called piglet. It's a kind of small barrel, glass barrel, in which you have your own brew, and you offer it, you hold it in your left hand, and you pour it into a shot you hold in your right hand. And as you see, I've chosen here two photos, one from '94 and one from 2018, to show that this is a continuing tradition, and it's used nowadays as it was at the beginning of the 90s. In Udmurtia, as well as in other regions, teapot is a very common way of nicely presenting kumyshka. You see it's being filled by one housewife. The other in Tatarstan fills the shot. And in this picture, you see the Skansen Museum in close to Ijevsk. Also, alcoholic drink with kumyshka is served. But any kind of other containers may be used, as you see here. The lady is coming as a guest, but she took away with her own kumyshka. You can also serve it in a pan, and that's particularly useful when you want to serve it hot. And there are at least two ways of serving spirits hot. One is called peshatem, usually is made with herbal tea and honey, and of course spirits. And the second, where the ladies have white petticoats, is in the Sharkan region, is a particular local drink which is made from kumyshka and maltose bases, which is called varsh. And they are served both hot, and so they're directly presented from the pan. The most original way of drinking was bestowed us in a village in southern Udmurt, which is directly, you see, from the main container, and it's quite funny, quite difficult, but very entertaining way of drinking kumyshka. And usually you drink it in shots, but if there's no shot, anything can do, a box also. So our colleague Larvali Kivi in a bus is compelled to drink from just a box. The last thing I wanted to talk about is the use of this beverage for commemorating the dead. Ancestors' cult is very important by the Udmurt. People ask the dead any kind of things they need, protection and success. And they do it in different situations, but there are general commemorations in spring and autumn, and where you see the icon corner and the candle. Behind the candle, there is a shot put with kumyshka. This is a spring ceremony for the dead. It's very discreet, so you can just forget it or not notice it. I'm sure I've not noticed it for years before I became aware of this ritual. And in the kitchen, you see at the end of the table there is a dish with food and kumyshka. The mother-in-law died less than 1 year before, and the daughter-in-law was just preparing something tasty, and she put out food and drink for her mother-in-law. So she is offering drink on the grave. This is not her mother-in-law, but it's her mother-in-law's aunt. And near all graves, you have a shot or a cup, which of course gets dirty. But when you go to the churchyard or the graveyard, you first clean it and then offer in this kumyshka. The last picture of commemoration of the dead is an occasional commemoration of the dead. I had been in this village 3 years earlier with an Estonian friend who died in the meanwhile. And when I went there in 2011, my hosts wanted to commemorate my dead friend. And so you see, we all, I'm with the ladies, so we all hold a shot of kumyshka, and they made a little ceremony for him. So this was quickly what I wanted to tell about the use of kumyshka, but perhaps a last use with the last picture, which is just over my piano. Kumyshka is an excellent gift, and friends give you kumyshka to bring back. And so I have here kumyshka coming from different villages of Udmurtia and the surrounding regions. And of course, they expect you to bring them also some spirits from the place you come from. So thank you for your attention, and cheers.